Half a second. Let's try that. Oh, that's better. I forgot I always turn on both banks of lights. Hello, I'm going to make myself a little bit bigger for a second. Hello, nice to see everybody. You're joining me on another crazy adventure. And this evening I've got a little bit more time. I last week turned into a just chaotic, charging all over the place, trying to get some admin work done, catch up with grant applications and all that kind of stuff. You know, some of the admin to keep myself going while this this craziness continues in the world, the real world. And now I have time to really get away from it. Kind of literally in some ways, not literally, but in terms of what we're doing in this game. Today I am going to be playing, and if I just bring this up to the top of my thing, Leaving Earth. This is a game that I saw played on the internet some time ago, and it immediately caught my eye. I loved the look of it. I say that Once Upon a Die is about storytelling games, and while that is true after a fashion for this game, this is one of the examples that is a really heavy game that kind of breaks that. If you don't like math, this is not the game for you. It is a very math-heavy game. This is all about planning space missions. You can see from... which way am I pointing? That way. This is weird doing this backwards. The tabletop game of the conquest of space. This is an alternate history universe set beginning 1956 and ending in 1976. And you can play this with up to 5 players. And the goal of the game is to... It's the space race, effectively. It's to get up to space and achieve whatever your goals are. Your missions are, without catastrophes happening, which certainly can. It's fantastic. It's really, really difficult. This is one of those examples where I know how to play the game, but I wouldn't say I'm good at it. We'll see what happens. This is going to be very interesting. Who have I got? Oh, hello, Jen. Thank you in the chat. And Billy as well. Nice to see you guys. And my spam bot has kicked in Nightbot, which, funnily enough, Billy has been teaching me to use. Apparently doesn't like Billy talking all in caps in my chat, and it's timed him out for 5 seconds. I'm sorry, Billy. I should work out how to turn that down. Maybe that's something we can talk about later on down the line once this stream is done. Yes, our Nightbot is an angry mod. I will fix that and make him happier. And Andy's here. I think, unless I'm very much mistaken, that is Andy from back in the UK. Hello, sir. Nice to see you as well. Anyway, Leaving Earth. This craziness that I'm attempting tonight. This is a very, very crazy game. This is a challenging game, and that is something that I think will be... sorry, I'm just moving things around on my screen. There we go. Make myself a little smaller. Will be aptly demonstrated by the amount of stuff that's on the board. This is not the board as it is set up. This is... there's a few things I want to randomize, and I wanted to randomize them on stream so that you guys know I am playing fully randomly and have absolutely no idea what I'm walking into. This should be interesting. Oh, that's the wrong way around. This is the proximity of our universe, abstracted down. You can see down here we have Earth, and we're going to be blasting off into space. We're going to have Mars over here, which we can visit. Venus is going to be up here. This gap here is for Ceres. I can't for the life of me remember what Ceres is attached to, which I really should have looked up before I started. Oh, what's Billy doing? Oh, can't stay, but have fun. It would have been in all caps if allowed. Thank you, Billy. I appreciate that, and I enjoy the workaround you have found. So yes, this is going to be this will be where Ceres lives, and all of these things that I have on the diagonal get randomized. So I don't know what's going to happen with those circumstances. The moon might be the moon. as we know it. Completely safe, you know, just go up there and land. There might be a horrendous dust storm that destroys any spaceship that tries to land on it. There might be microbial life. We don't know. The moon has 4 cards, as you can see. This side of the card says unexplored. When you get to explore it, you flip it over, and something happens. So this has valuable minerals, this will destroy it, this has life, and this is just the moon, as we are currently aware of it. I'm going to shuffle all those up in a second. What we're going to be doing in this game, we have 20 years, symbolized by this time track here. And in those 20 years, we're going to try and achieve a series of missions. For solitaire play, the game recommends that you try hard or very hard mode to get a real challenge. I've played this game on hard. Full upfront confession, I'm yet to beat it, but I have a whale of a time playing it every time. What hard mode constitutes is we have these missions. There's a few easy ones, there's more medium difficulty ones, and there's a good number of hard ones. We're going to play with 3 easy, 3 medium, and 2 hard. That's hard mode. To give you an idea, medium difficulty would be 4 easy and 2 medium, and that's it. So there's more involved in a hard mode game. So we're going to draw 3 of those, get rid of the rest, and we're going to draw 3 of these, and get rid of the rest, and finally 2 of these, and these are the ones that are really going to screw up my day. The one thing I am going to do, actually, before I fully count the others out, is I'm going to check. There is an expansion in here to include Mercury, and you can do stuff, you can fly to Mercury and do things there. Because I find this game very challenging, I haven't mastered it well enough to play with Mercury currently, so if there are any Mercury-oriented objectives in here, I'm going to take them out. Before I carry on, one of these days I'm actually going to write myself a script for the beginning of my streams so that I remember to say everything, but if you are watching this on YouTube after the fact, please turn on the Klingon subtitles. They will go up within a couple of days of this going live, or if I'm really smart about it, they'll go up before this goes live. Any rules errors that I make during this playthrough will go onto the Klingon subtitles, so if I have made any mistakes, you'll be able to find out about them if you're learning this game and correct yourselves, or correct basically what I did there. So please turn those on if you are watching on YouTube. If you are watching me right now on Twitch and I make any mistakes, tough. Nothing I can do about that, I'm afraid. Hopefully I'll be okay, but there is a lot going on in this game. So, my objectives are going to be: have a working probe or capsule in Earth orbit. Nice and simple. Send a man to space and bring him back. Also nice and simple. Reveal the moon location, i.e. do a survey and flip this card over. Okay, those 3 are pretty good. So far, so interesting. Moon sample on Earth. Means I have to fly to the moon, collect a sample, and come back. Survey Venus. That's not too bad. I have to go fly by it, do a thing. Oh, that is Mercury. Okay, so that's a medium. I'm going to toss that and bring something that is not Mercury. Sure, you're good. Space station. Have a man in space at the start of the year. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oops, I took 3 cards. That was stupid. Ooh. Put a man on Venus and bring him back. Eek. And bring back a sample from Mars. Okay, now, here's the first thing we have to work out here. This, in the bottom left-hand corner, is the victory point value of this card. So, our total victory points are going to be 16, that's 48, 54, 60, 70, 74, 78. Okay, so our victory point value for this game, the total victory points that are going to be active, is going to be 78. To win, therefore, half of 78 is 39. We have to score 40 points. We have to be just over 50% of what's in this deck. So one thing to look at is, how do we score 50 points? Well, we can do it by not touching the 2 difficult missions at all. No, we can't. Let me remath that. 40 points. I'll try that again. We can do that by not landing a man on Venus. That would be one way to avoid it. I do have to go to Venus anyway. What I don't have to do anywhere else in here is go to Mars. So one thing I could do is choose to ignore Mars completely and try and achieve everything else that's in here. There's 78 points in the game. If I do that, I will have scored 62 of them, and that's a win. And if I do that, I can start leaving other stuff out of the game. Strategizing this is really important, because the fewer places you have to go to and the fewer number of times you have to go there, the better. The nice thing is, all 3 of my easy missions could arguably be completed with one space flight. Because I could fly to the moon, to lunar orbit, survey the moon, find out what's there, do this with a manned capsule rather than just a probe, leave him in space. In fact, I don't even need to leave him in space. No, I've got the man in space at the start of the year. Leave him in space for a year, and then bring him back down again. And if I leave him in Earth orbit, I've achieved all 4 of these and scored 14 points out the bat. Revealing Venus shouldn't be difficult. There's one thing I actually want to check, rules-wise, and I should have checked this before we started. I checked it for something else, but not for this, which is what happens... so with the moon, for example, there is a card here that says valuable minerals. Oh, no, I've answered my own question. Never mind. If... I can bring back a moon sample regardless. It's just not worth any money. If the moon valuable minerals card comes up, it's worth 25 bucks to me at the beginning of the year. 25 million, excuse me. The reason I say I checked that, and it's not going to apply to this game, there is a hard mission, and it's the most valuable mission in the game. 40 points. Bring back a sample of extraterrestrial life. Now, 1, that's extremely difficult. 2, it might not be able to happen. Because if none of the locations that can support extraterrestrial life, in theory, which I think is the moon, Mars, seasonal growths of plant, yeah, Mars would hold it, Phobos would not, Venus, I'm curious now, I've never actually looked at this, Venus could have it, and Ceres could not. So Venus, Mars, and the Moon, makes sense, are the 3 places that could theoretically support life. If none of them has life, you can't complete that objective. It's impossible, because there isn't any. In which case, you actually discard it from the game and remove those 40 points from your objective total, which is really nice if you've already achieved a ton of stuff, and then 40% of your objective total goes away and your bar gets lowered. In this game, that is unlikely to happen, because I can do everything that's here. I am going to lay these objectives out. One thing I should note as well, I've been using 2 cameras recently. I've been having a camera in camera for dice rolling and things like that. Unfortunately, the keyboard that's attached to the iMac I'm using to stream with died, and that was one of the big Apple keyboards that has a USB slot in the end of it. Because that has died, I now have a smaller keyboard that can't support that, which means I've lost the additional USB slot I need for my camera in camera. So my apologies, we're dealing with 1 camera today plus my viewing screen, which means some things are going to be off camera. I'm going to put my objectives just below where you guys can see. My apologies for that. I need to be able to see them all so that I can keep the planning in mind, and I will bring them forward as they become relevant, essentially. Just to give you an idea, I'm just going to tilt my camera. My apologies if this shakes a lot. There's a bunch more cards. These are the objectives we don't need anymore. There's a bunch of cards over here, which I will be talking about in due course. They are relevant to our interests. So, first things first, I'm going to shuffle things up so I can compress the board down. Each of these areas has 3 or 4 unexplored cards associated with it, and this is me just very quickly proving to you guys that yes, I am playing by the rules. That is going to be our Phobos card, and I remove the others from the game. And I do the same thing for all of the areas that can be randomized. So this is our Mars card, is going to be this one, let's say. That goes on there. And you can see what's kind of cool is that everything slots together to form this picture on the back of these cards. This is going to be our suborbital space. Suborbital space being the area of space where you cannot reach orbit, I believe. Solar radiation. This could be completely harmless or relatively harmless, or it could be, well, frightening. Let's bring out this guy. That just sits there. That is just a threat that exists. Oops. And I should have got... I'm working... I have the possibility of getting a green baize playing mat for this area, which I should have done for this game, because there's a lot of cards involved. Anyway, let's use this as our Venus. We're going to use... I'm shuffling these way more than I really need to, given there's only 3 cards in them. I'm going to use this for Ceres. And let's get our moon. Now, you'll see a whole bunch of symbology on all of these things. It's fairly self-explanatory once you get to it. And here is our moon. Will be this one. So there we go. Which way is it? It goes this way. There we go. There is our solar system. I'm going to zoom in for a second. Hopefully this works. There we go. Okay, so looking at what's on our cards briefly. The manual for this game, which is quite thick, but a lot of it is... like there's a whole chunk. This whole chunk of the manual on this side is kind of factual stuff and science that supports the game, which is really cool. They put a lot of thought into this. But the manual begins with the basics of rocketry. And I think that is just something I'm going to explain very briefly, and then we'll get going. But the basics of rocketry say the following, which is that your maneuvering capability is, or the thrust required, is equal to the difficulty of a movement, the difficulty of achieving something, multiplied by the weight that you are carrying up. That is, I don't know if that's a scientific thing. I haven't read the scientific facts behind this, but it is at least a basic principle. You can see here, Earth orbit, 5. That means moving from suborbital space to orbit of the Earth is a difficulty of 5, because you're having to break our atmosphere, where Earth orbit back down to Earth is a 0, because falling out of the sky is easy. Therefore, if we're going this way, it doesn't cost us anything. We just drop. You don't need rockets to fall. But if we're going the other way, breaking through the atmosphere is quite challenging, and you can't see it the way I've zoomed in right now. Earth to suborbital is only a difficulty of 3, which sort of points out that breaking into suborbital space, because it's not fully through the atmosphere, not that difficult. Breaking out of the atmosphere, much harder. If I take, for example, I'm just going to assemble a very, very simple rocket. Let's say this was our rocket. It's one Juno rocket and with a probe attached to it. Top left-hand corner here, weight values. So this is a Juno rocket with a weight of 1 and a probe with a weight of 1. That's a weight of 2 total. Difficulty from suborbital space to Earth orbit is 5. 2 times 5 is 10. I need 10 thrust to achieve that particular maneuver. The Juno rocket provides 4. So that's not enough. So let's add 2 more Juno rockets. Well, now my thrust is 12, but my weight is 4, and now it needs 20. So this is where the math comes into what you're actually achieving, and I'm trying to work out whether Juno rockets can actually take something into orbital space, and I haven't worked that out yet. They can't, I don't think, because every Juno rocket that you add adds 4 to the thrust, and the difficulty is 5, which means every Juno rocket adds 5 to the difficulty, because 1 weight times 5 difficulty, which means Juno rockets alone cannot take you into orbit. We're going to need something more powerful, so we use something like the Atlas rocket, which has a weight of 4, but a thrust of 27. So if we send this guy up, he has a weight of 5, 5 times 5 is 25, but the Atlas rocket gives me 27 thrust. Oops, sorry, that's a Juno I just attached there. That was supposed to be a probe, just for the purposes of accurate demonstration. So this can take off and reach orbit. However many Junos I strap onto this probe are never going to be enough. That's how that works. we need to research everything. We're starting from the ground up here, so every single piece of technology we're researching requires this. I'm going to come on to what research does in a minute, but it's another element of that, and I just wanted to mention it at this stage. So these big numbers here are the difficulty of making maneuvers. You'll see you can move diagonally. In some cases, if you've just done a flyby of the moon, you can move diagonally. You can move diagonally back into Earth orbit, or diagonally to land on the moon. Or you can come up here to lunar orbit. You cannot go from a lunar flyby into suborbital space. There's no arrow between these two cards, so it's not a move I can make. Similarly, I can't go from a Venus flyby to lunar orbit, for reasons that, if you understand our solar system, I'm sure don't really need a lot of explanation. I suppose theoretically it could be possible if the moon was in exactly the right place, but so we're going to make these moves. Where you can see these hourglass symbols, that means it takes time. If I'm in Earth orbit and I want to go and orbit Mars, which I can do, that's going to cost me 3 time, which equates to 3 years. I can do that quicker, but I make everything more difficult. I can halve, rounding up, so from 3 to 2, I can halve the amount of time it takes, so I could fly to Mars in 2 years. But the difficulty of that maneuver becomes 10. And if I want to do it in 1 year, that difficulty becomes 15. Think about one Juno rocket provides only just more than a quarter of the power that would take to achieve. So there's serious issues if you're going that high. It's probably something I should mess around with more in this game. It's not something I've messed around with a lot. Anyway, that's what these hourglasses mean. The radiation symbol means that solar radiation is in some way, shape, or form going to impact me. We don't know fully how until this gets turned over. There's also the lost symbol in a few places. If you are doing a flyby of Venus, of Mars, or of the moon, and you don't have enough rocket power to get out of it, and you end your year in one of those spaces, your spacecraft is lost, and everything attached to it disappears. If, on the other hand, I'm in lunar orbit, for example, and I end my year, that spaceship stays in lunar orbit. It doesn't go anywhere. It's orbiting the moon. And if I don't have any rockets attached to it, it's going to stay put. Challenges that you can face. This little symbol here, that looks a little bit like a landing pod, means you're landing. So if I'm going this way, I have to attempt a landing. This symbol here means that where I am trying to go has an atmosphere, which means I have to try and attempt re-entry. Otherwise, my spacecraft will burn up. We've done time, we've done that. Am I missing anything? I don't think so. Oh, and this symbol here means you cannot explore suborbital space without a man on board your aircraft. If you try and go up there with a probe that has nobody on it, or an unmanned capsule, you don't find out what's there. You have to go up with a person. You cannot dock or separate in any way, shape, or form. Or repair yourself while you are in suborbital space. I think that's about it. Okay, I've been talking a bunch of mumbo-jumbo. Let me now explain how this all works. First things first, you'll notice a bunch of outcome stacks here. They look like this. These decks contain 3 different cards. They contain successes, they contain major failures, and they contain minor failures. What they do depends on the thing that you are attempting to use at the time. And this is where I was talking about research and how things go. We are going to have 3 of these cards drawn for each piece of research that we do. So if we research Atlas rockets, we draw 3 outcome cards. If we research the Vostok capsule, we draw 3 cards. If we research landing as a process, we draw 3 cards. Whenever you attempt to do that thing, if there are any of these cards left on that, so let's just take this Atlas rocket, for example. I have my 3 cards, they go here. I try and fire an Atlas rocket to go somewhere. I'm going to shuffle these up, and I'm going to draw the top card. Success! Everything went well. Woohoo! Thrust has been provided. And off we go. I'll come back to that in a minute. Oh, 3 successes. Perfect. So this is the ideal in many ways, in the sense that nothing is ever going to go wrong with these Atlas rockets. However, every time I fire them off, I have to shuffle up these cards and draw one. So let's say there's a major failure in there. I could shuffle them, draw a success. Next time, shuffle them, draw a success. Next time, shuffle them, draw a success. Wonderful. Now I attach that Atlas rocket to a capsule that has 3 astronauts in it, and some ion thrusters and half a dozen other rockets, and it's cost me about $50 million to build. Shuffle them up, draw the major failure. Boom. That one rocket goes up and blows up the entire spaceship, and I lose everybody who is on board. Suffice it to say, not a good scenario. So, every minor and major failure that you turn up while you're doing this, you can spend $5 million and remove that card from the deck, so that it's never going to show up again. Successes, you can spend $10 million and remove that card from the deck. And all of this represents you doing research into what went wrong or what went right. Once you've removed those cards, they obviously never come up again. And if you remove all 3, you're now at an automatic success level. And every single time you fire that rocket or you do that procedure, you are going to succeed. That is one reason you want to keep researching them. The other reason is so that if there's a failure hidden somewhere in that deck, it doesn't come out at the worst possible moment, which it always will. It's expensive, though. You get $25 million a year. So if I draw 3 successes in 1 year, I can't clear them all out. There is one benefit to that. If the final card, when you turn it over, is a success, you can wipe it automatically, because it's just going to be successes for the rest of the time. If the final card is a failure, you have to wipe it, or it's going to come up every single time you draw from that deck. There's a risk management thing going on here that's very, very involved. If we send people up into space, we need life support. We also need supplies. Basically, what happens is astronauts can go up. They can go up in capsules. You'll see this probe, for example, bottom right-hand corner, empty. As soon as you have a capsule, bottom right-hand corner, this one can carry 2 astronauts. Really bad idea to try and land this thing anywhere that has an atmosphere. Because you can see down at the bottom there, it says cloud, burn up. That means if you try and carry that thing through an atmosphere, it doesn't have a heat shield. It's just everyone on board is going to die. The Vostok capsule and the Apollo capsule have heat shields. The Eagle capsule and the Aldrin capsule do not. If I send astronauts up in one of those, I have to send another spacecraft up with a different capsule to bring them back down to Earth again, and that means I have to do the rendezvous procedure. You get my point. There's a lot involved in what's going on here. I'm going to call the explanation... Oh, sorry, one thing. Losing astronauts. 1, if an astronaut dies, that's -2 points at the end of the game, and we're already against the clock with all the things we have to try and achieve. 2, there are 3 ways of losing astronauts. If there is an astronaut in space who is incapacitated, that is to say, here is Buzz Aldrin. Let's say he becomes incapacitated for some reason. If he is still incapacitated at the end of the year, he dies. If there's a medic on board, they might be able to help him. But if he is incapacitated at the end of the year, he dies. If they don't have food at the end of the year, they die. And if life support fails, they die. So you need to be very, very certain of what you're doing. The other thing is food, supplies. One supply feeds up to 5 astronauts. So supplies are pretty good in that regard, but they are weight. Astronauts aren't. In the grand scheme of rocket-powered thrust, 1 person doesn't make much of a difference. But the supplies needed to sustain that person in space for a year most definitely do. So there's a lot to take into account there. The last thing I'm going to mention is the last little few components. There are these really cute little wooden hourglasses that we will use anytime we are doing something that requires a number of years. For example, flying to Venus. And there are these really, really adorable little wooden components for the 4 rockets. The way these work is I will attach, if I'm building this rocket, I can put all the pieces on here to see what that rocket is made of, and just put this guy onto the map, so that I'm not cluttering the map up with hundreds of cards I'm trying to work out what to do with. That, I think, is everything for now. Everything else will, I hope, make sense as I play along. So just as a quick reminder, for anybody who's joined us... Oh, hello! Trouble, hello! Nice to see you. Poor Buzz Aldrin indeed, yes. That would not have been a particularly pleasant fate for him. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But keeping dudes up in space can be tough, especially if suborbital flight is something unpleasant. Oh, if you end in suborbital space, you'll notice here it's got the exclamation mark. In every other case, that means lost. On Earth, it means you are forced to splash down or attempt a landing or something like that. You just come back down to Earth. You can attempt to land if you want on Earth, or you can splash down into the ocean, in which case everything is fine, but you don't test your landing and you don't get rid of potential failures in the deck. So, let's move on. Let's start playing this game. So first things first, I'm going to keep out, just because it's been a little while since I played this, I'm going to keep the back of the manual has a turn order. Well, it's got the maneuver thing. In fact, yes, it's got each year here, starting missions for difficulties, what you do on your turn, the order of the turn, and this is the steps of achieving a maneuver. First thing I'm going to do is take $25 million. Which is every year we get that, and it's the premise of you have a budget of $25 million. If I save 10 million, I don't have 35 million to spend next year. The agency that is sponsoring us goes, oh, well, they don't need more money. Here's $15 million to make it up to your budget. I am, incidentally, playing as the 2nd Artillery Corps from China's space program. The main reason for that, which I saw Antlab Games played through this a while ago, the red pieces show up really, really nicely on the board. That's the only reason I've particularly gone for them. The other colours in the game are grey, white, yellow, and blue, and they tend to get lost a little bit in space. So, $25 million. Do I have any start of the year missions? Well, yes, I do, actually. I have a start of year mission to have a man in space. If I had a man in space right now, I just achieved that objective. I don't. Moot point. Take turns. Okay, do stuff. So, I have to spend money. The first thing I need to do is get some rockets up. Juno rockets, as we've already discovered, do not break Earth orbit. I will need them to move around, but they're not going to get me started. So, I'm going to research Atlas rockets. That's going to cost me $10 million. So you see money goes down the drain extremely quickly. $10 million, I've researched Atlas rockets. I immediately draw the top 3 outcomes and place them onto that deck. Or onto that card. You can see here, you draw the outcome. If the outcome is a success, the rocket is discarded because it's a rocket. It falls off the ship. And it provides its thrust. If it's a minor failure, the rocket is damaged and provides no thrust, so I don't get to go anywhere. But it's still attached to the aircraft and I can potentially repair it if I have a mechanic on board. If I have a major failure, the rocket blows up and destroys the spacecraft completely. Not a good scenario. So I've bought that for $10 million. All research costs $10 million. I'm going to make this first year a prep year. I'm not going to fire anything off into space. So I'm going to learn the surveying technology, or advancement. This starts the game with just a single outcome. We don't have 3 on this one. I think... Yeah, it's the only card in the game that starts with a single outcome, but looking out the window and firing off your instruments and whatever surveying actually entails, I'm being facetious, it's not, in the grand scheme of things, particularly difficult. So it's not something that we have to really work towards. That's going to cost me $10 million. I have $5 million left. I'm going to spend that $5 million to buy myself an Atlas rocket. You can see, bottom left-hand corner here, $5 million. And I'm going to build this guy. So he goes on there. I now have an Atlas rocket standing on my launch pad. I've done all my turns. I have nothing to repair. There's no one incapacitated in space, so nobody dies. I don't need to feed anybody. I advance the calendar. It's now 1957. And if any time tokens were out on ships that were moving somewhere, I would take them off. I'll come onto that when it becomes relevant, which it will. So, 1957, I take $25 million. Jen says, if only it was that easy to get $25 million. I hear that. I totally hear that. On that note, actually, for anybody who might be watching who is not already doing so, I would really appreciate anybody following me here on Twitch. Solitaire game playthroughs is what I do. This is going to be a slightly heavier one. I've had a slightly quiet week, so I really wanted to come back in with something chewy, but I do all kinds of different things. So I would really love it if you would follow me here on Twitch. I'm slowly pushing my way towards Twitch affiliate status as well, so that I can get a subscribe button and all that kind of stuff. But if you get the opportunity, please, if you think you'd like what I do, please do follow me here. Thank you. Treble Tribble says, what planet are we going to? Right, you joined in after my missions were revealed. The missions are all down here. It's this little row of cards you can't quite see because I don't have space to put them all out and demonstrate everything I'm doing. We need to fly to the moon and survey it and get a sample from it, which incidentally does not mean I have to land a person on the moon. I can actually go through this entire game without landing a person anywhere. Except back on Earth. I need to bring a man safely back to Earth for one of my missions. So we're going to the moon to survey it and to collect a sample. We need to survey Venus, and we need to get a sample from Mars. Alternative... No. Treble says, sorry I was late. Absolutely no problem being late. It's all good. Just a quick opportunity to catch you up while I've stopped for a second. We need to bring a sample back from Mars. The last thing that we could do is we could land a man on Venus. We'll see how that goes. I may not even be able to. If I turn the Venus card over and it says spaceship destroyed, if it tries to land there, obviously I can't land and that mission goes away. So I've got to decide ultimately, I could land a man on Venus and drop 2 of the other objectives, or I could do everything except Venus and ignore Venus other than the survey. The survey's pretty easy. We'll see. I don't know what I'm going to try and do yet. We'll see how our rocketry goes and how delayed I am getting something powerful onto the board. If I get Saturn rockets fairly quickly, yeah, we'll probably go for Venus. Anyway, so I've got my 25 million. Treble, sorry, in case you also aren't aware of the win condition, I have 78 victory points on my 8 missions that I have drawn. I have to therefore score 40. You have to get one more point than half the total to win. And Treble says, Atlas rockets won't get us to Venus. You're right. I'm not going to go for Venus straight out of the gate. I'm going for lunar surveys, getting a sample from the moon, and leaving a man in Earth orbit for a year. The Atlases might be useful for coming back from Venus. We'll see how this goes. Anyway, so I have Atlas rockets and I have the surveying capability. I'm going to spend... Let's think. So if I'm going from Earth, I need to land on the moon, which means I need to practice landing to get the sample. I need to survey the moon, which means I need surveying. That's easy enough. I could also, I think, if I remember rightly, I can just try landing on the moon, in which case I discover it. But if it's going to blow up my rocket, then everything goes with it. Man in space at the start of the year. I need life support for that. I don't have life support yet. I'm not going to buy it just this early. I want to do a couple of other things. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to spend $5 million, and we're going to buy another Atlas rocket. I think I'm going to build that onto there. I'm going to put that into my inventory for now. And I'm going to buy a probe for $2 million. And... I'm just going to call it there for a second. So that leaves me with $18 million left over. Okay, I just realized you're not seeing these upside down, so I don't know why I'm putting them upside down. There we go. $18 million left over. Let's think. So if I assemble a probe onto an Atlas rocket, well, one thing, I can only fire that once. Let's work out what I need to do here. If I'm going to attach a probe and 2 Atlas rockets, that's going to be a weight of 9. Getting up into Earth orbit is a difficulty of 8. So if I'm going to get up there, 8 8 difficulty times 9 is going to be 72. Which means I can't do that straight. What I could do, however, going into suborbital is a difficulty of 3. 3 times 9 is 27, which is exactly the thrust provided by one Atlas rocket. Which means one rocket will get 2 rockets and the probe up into suborbital space. I don't get to discover suborbital space because I only discover that when there is a man on the ship, because the basic thing is it affects your crew. So it's irrelevant until there's a man there. Going from suborbital space into Earth orbit requires 5 difficulty. 5 times 5 would be 25, which means I can get a probe into Earth orbit with just these 2 Atlas rockets in a 2-stage formation. One Atlas takes the whole thing into suborbital space and then falls off. The other Atlas gets me into orbit and then falls off. At that point in time, my probe is stuck in Earth orbit and has nothing else to do. But that is my first mission. Get a probe into Earth orbit. That is a valid thing. If I wanted to go and land on the moon, I would have another difficulty 3 and a difficulty 2. Now you'll notice from Earth, it gives me 8 to get to Earth orbit, which means I can do that in a single stage if I have the capability of doing so. But I do not get to go from Earth orbit to land on the moon in a single stage. I have to go to lunar orbit and then land on the moon. So that's a difficulty 3 and a difficulty 2. I also need to survey. So if I'm going to go across there, that's another difficulty 3, which means I could do it with the probe and an Atlas rocket. I could get into lunar orbit. But I need something else to get me up, because I'm now using everything. So if I add another Atlas rocket, that's going to give me a weight of 13. 13 times 3 is 39, which means one Atlas rocket doesn't cut it anymore. I can't blast off into suborbital space with 3 Atlas rockets attached. If I add a 4th, we're now looking at a weight of 17. 17 times 3 is 51. Yes, it is. 2 Atlas rockets provide 54. So I can use 2 Atlas rockets to power 4 and a probe into suborbital space, and then use 1 Atlas rocket to go to Earth orbit and another Atlas rocket to go into lunar orbit. From lunar orbit, I can survey the moon. So I can do all of that with this build here. So I'm going to spend the $8 million that I've got here. No, it's 10 million. I'm going to spend $10 million, sorry, to buy 2 more Atlas rockets. So therefore, I'm going to build this ship of 4 Atlas rockets and a probe. And that ship is now ready to achieve something. I have $8 million left. The big question is, do I want to risk firing $22 million worth of equipment up without having tested my rockets at all? Because if there's failures in here, that's going to go badly. The answer to that question is probably not. Therefore, I'm going to spend $7 million to buy 1 more Atlas rocket and a probe. That's going to be a weight of 5. 5 times 5, 25. We've already established that. That's going to go there. I now have 2 rockets ready to take off. I have $1 million left. I could buy a Juno rocket, but I don't have the research to do so. I could also... I'm going to... Because I have $1 million left over, I'm going to buy some supplies. They last forever and a year. I'm going to tuck them over here because I will probably need them in the future. $25 million gone. What I'm going to do now is test fire my probe. So I'm going to try and send this probe into suborbital space. That is a difficulty of 3. 3 times 5 is 15. This is providing a thrust of 27. No problem. Except I have to draw this and see what's going to happen. So, flip. Major fail. Oh, and I shouldn't have done that. Well, we know there's a major failure in the deck now. That's useful information to a point. This rocket has gone up here, blown up. Fortunately, there was nobody on board, but it means that that Atlas and that probe are completely destroyed. The reason I'm saying I shouldn't have done that, and it was a little bit of a waste of money of sorts, is the 5 million I spent to build that rocket, I could now use to remove this major failure from this deck. I'm broke, so I can't do that. But it's worth me knowing that that's there, because that incentivizes me to hold back on sending this rocket up until I've tested it further. Because I'm going to have to fire 4 different Atlases. And the chances of me shuffling 4 completely out of this is very, very slim. Going into 1958, here's $25 million. Okay. A rocket only has to consist of one component. Components are capsules, probes, thrusters, and rockets. I haven't talked about thrusters yet. We'll probably get to them in a bit. But that means I can simply stick an Atlas rocket on a launch pad and fire it off. And that is a reasonable way of testing rockets. It's in my interest to stick a probe on it because it has some benefit to doing that. But I'm going to spend 10 million bucks on 2 more Atlas rockets, and I'm going to set them up separately. I just want to check one thing. Component 2, 10, 21, 22. I very... 2. Yeah, 2, 10. Where do you mention components? I just want to make sure I'm absolutely correct that a rocket on its own consists of a component. Yeah. So I can fire both of those Atlas rockets right now. They weigh 4. They're gonna get into suborbital space and then just fall back to Earth. But it will at least give me an opportunity to test fire some rockets and see if I can do some good. So I'm gonna fire an Atlas rocket into space. I draw an outcome for said rockets. It's really difficult to shuffle 3 very small cards. Success! Excellent. So that rocket went into space and then blew up. But well, it didn't blow up. It fell back to Earth and smashed. But it achieved its thing. I'm going to spend $10 million to get that success out of the deck and discard it. The key thing being now, one of these 2 cards is a major failure. I'm firing my other Atlas rocket to get me into suborbital space. Minor failure. Okay. $5 million gets rid of that minor failure. This rocket didn't go anywhere. It sat on the launch pad and went and didn't take off. Nothing blew up. Now, here's the nice thing. It is considered damaged. At the end of the year, I get a free repair. So that rocket has stayed on its pad and is now going to get repaired by the repair team. And next year, I can try again, and I don't have to spend another $5 million to get it back. The irony being, we know they didn't repair it very well, because this is a major failure card. Which means I need to test fire that, because otherwise my beautiful construction over here is going to explode on the launch pad. Which is bad, obviously. And yeah, that's not going to achieve an awful lot useful stuff. I have no money. I could fire that rocket again right now, because it... Well, no, I can't, actually. Technically, it's still damaged until I declare end of year. But if I fired it right now, I would find that major failure card again, and I would not be able to buy it off. So, 1959. Surprise, surprise, $25 million. And first thing I'm going to do is fire this Atlas rocket. I flip this over. Major failure. Rocket has exploded. $5 million gets that out of the deck, and now they've done their research properly, and instead of fixing the wrong thing and blowing up the rocket, my Atlas rockets will now always succeed. They are bulletproof, or meteor-proof, or idiot-proof, whatever proof you would like. That's fantastic, which means the next thing I'm going to do is fire off my probe. because I can just get a couple of objectives out the way quickly. I'm going to fire my probe into suborbital space. Now, let's just come back to that math for 1 second and make sure I did it right. I have a weight right now of 16 on this rocket, plus 1 for the probe. So all of the components here add up to 17. 17 times 3, 30 plus 21, 51. Atlas rockets provide 27 thrust. Double 27 is 54. So, to get to suborbital space, I fire 2 Atlas rockets, and they go off perfectly because I have researched the kinks out of them. Alright, I am now in suborbital space. I don't, remember, discover suborbital space because there isn't a man on this rocket, just a probe. Alright, my weight is now 9. I misfired. I totally misfired. I'm actually going to take this back. I did not do my math properly. I can take this back safely because nothing has changed. I haven't had to turn over cards and things like that. If I turned over a card, I wouldn't be taking this move back. The reason I misfired was I forgot, with a weight of 9, I'm going to need 45 to break into Earth orbit. Previously, I was dealing with a weight of 5. Which means I need 2 Atlas rockets to get me there. So, if I add another Atlas rocket, this is going to throw my sums off again. Maybe I should just research Soyuz, but Atlas works, damn it! So, that would be 21. 21 times 3 is 63. I cannot get 63 thrust with 2 Atlas rockets. They do 54. I'm 9 short. Maybe what I need to do is fire off some Junos as well, because I could use Junos in the first stage. If I add, so 54, basically I need to land here with 3 rockets still attached. Which means I am going to be dealing with... No, hang on. I need to get here with 1 rocket attached. Which means I need to get here... See what I mean about this game being confusing? And this is definitely not for everybody as a result. I have 17. I need to get 2 here. So let's work backwards. To get here, I need an Atlas and a probe. That's a weight of 5, that's 15, that's no problem. So I need this much when I get to here. To get this much here, against a weight of 5, if I have 9... 9 times 5 is 45, so that's not good enough. If I have 13, 13 times 5 is 65, which is also not good enough, because at that point in time I would have to use all 3 of my Atlases. So the answer is I need some Junos. Difficulty of 3 to go from lunar orbit to... from Earth orbit to lunar orbit. If I do 3 times 2, that's 6. If I do 3 times 3, that's 9. So I need 3 Junos and my probe to successfully get to lunar orbit. That's a weight of 4. If I add this, that's a weight of 8. 8 times 5 is 40. That's not good enough. That's a weight of 12. 12 times 5 is 60. That's still not good enough. Doing this all in one without having a Soyuz rocket available to me may not have been the smartest move I could have pulled off. Maybe let's focus on a couple of easier things. I'm going to... Yeah, I know what I'm going to do. Let's get a few bits and pieces taken care of first. So... I'm going to... Oh, I've already bought the 2 Atlases, because I already own those. Those are going to go back into my inventory for now. I'm going to fire this off. So this is 9. 9 times 3 is 27. Oh, I'm going to fire 1 at... No, I need to get into... So 9 times 3 is 27, which is 1 rocket. Yeah, that's what I need to do. I'm going to fire this rocket. I'm going to fire me into suborbital space, which uses 1 Atlas rocket. And then I'm going to fire me up into Earth orbit, which uses another Atlas rocket. I now have a probe in Earth orbit, which means I have achieved my artificial satellite goal. 2 points to me. That probe is going to sit there now in Earth orbit until I do something with it, because it has no means of coming back. But it has at least pulled something up there. I'm going to research 2 new technologies right now for my $20 million that I have left. I'm going to research landing, and I'm going to research life support. Oh, I need re-entry as well, don't I, if I'm going to do that. No, first things first, I'm going to research re-entry and life support. I'm going to need those. They're going to get 3 outcome cards each. I need re-entry to bring anything back into Earth, which is what I need to try and do. Because I am going to have to land a man. I could just splash down in Earth, I guess, but I need to work out landing. I need to bring him back for sure. So re-entry is compulsory. Landing isn't necessary for that, but it will be necessary to get samples. Am I in the correct year? I think I am. 19. Yes, because I just spent all my money. Right. I'm going to need all of those. I'm not doing anything with them yet. The reason I'm not testing life support is this is a probe, not a capsule. Only capsules test life support. So, 1960. Here's 25 million bucks. All right. What am I going to do in 1960? I'm going to build another rocket, but this time I'm going to put a capsule on it. I'm going to put in a Vostok. That's going to cost me 2 million. So I'm left with 13. I'm going to attach an Atlas to it. Now, this has a weight of 6. 6 times 3 is 18, so this can get into suborbital space. But I can't then get out if I just put another Atlas on, because this is a weight of 10. 10 times 3 is 30, and this has a necessity of 27. So I need to think again for a second about how I'm going to do this. I know my Atlases are bulletproof. Do I want to do anything with Junos at this stage? I need to test re-entry and life support. The other thing I have been doing is I've been plotting a lunar orbit. I could also go for lunar flyby, but if I don't have the rocketry to get myself back out of lunar flyby, I lose the entire rocket that goes up there. If there's only a probe left, that might not be the biggest deal. I'm going to recalculate that, actually. So probe... No. I'm going to deal with what I'm dealing with first. Let's get some re-entries tested first. If I send a Vostok up with 3 Atlas rockets attached to it, that's going to be a weight of 14. 14 times 3 is going to be 42, which is 2 Atlas rockets. And then 6 times 5 is 30, so that's not enough. If I do 4, that takes me to 16. I must remember I have 2 of these. 16 times 3 is going to be 48, which 2 of those will do. 2 of them will then get this into space, and it can re-enter by itself. So I'm going to spend 10 million to buy myself 2 more Atlas rockets, because we know they're fine. And I'm going to attach all 4 of them to the Vostok. Like so. And let's see what happens. Blast off. It goes into orbit. It's going to cost me, so 18 times 3. Oh, I said 16, didn't I? 18 times 3, 8 threes is 24. That's 54, which is exactly 2 Atlas rockets. So they blast off. That works. I then have to do 10 times 5, which is 50. Again, 54. So that works. And this capsule is now in Earth orbit. So I've put a capsule up there. I'm going to leave it up there at the end of the year in orbit. And as the year goes down, I have to test life support. You do not have to have a human being on a capsule to test life support, because the system either works or it doesn't. Flip. Success. I'm going to spend 10 million to remove that. Alright, so I have 2 cards left on life support. And it's ended the year in space, so I don't bring it down just yet. 1961. I lose this... Oh, you know what? I've got 3 million bucks. I'm going to have bought another Vostok for 2. And another supplies for 1. And they're just going to go into my inventory. So. Oh, this paper money. It's a bit of a tricksy thing to deal with. My apologies while I do a moment's cleanup, so that I'm not spewing paper money everywhere. There we go. Okay. $25 million at the beginning of the year. There we go. Yeah, that's life support. Okay. I can leave my Vostok in space and keep testing life support. Or I can drop it down to Earth and attempt re-entry. I think I'm going to end up leaving it in space. I'm going to spend 10 million on some more Atlas rockets to go into my inventory. No, I'm going to spend 5 million on one Atlas rocket for now, and I'm going to spend 10 million, 5 million, and then 10 million. So I've already given back my my 10. I'm going to spend that, and I'm going to get the Soyuz rocket technology, because I need to start firing off some heavier rockets. Soyuz have a weight of 9. They cost me $8 million, but they have a thrust of 80. Which is substantial and will help a lot. I have $10 million left. I'm going to leave my Vostok in orbit, so I test my life support again. Success. $10 million gets rid of that. Going into 1962. Here's my 25 million back. Okay. Beginning of this year, I'm going to spend $10 million to buy a Soyuz, and I'm going to build that here. That gives me 2 million back. Sorry, it's 8 million to build the Soyuz. I'm going to... This is taking me a very long time. I'm going to spend 5 million to... I'm going to spend 5 million to hire Neil Armstrong. Neil Armstrong is a pilot. You'll see down the bottom there it says landing +1, rendezvous +1. What that means is if I am using the landing or rendezvous technologies, a major failure counts as a minor failure and a minor failure counts as a success. Which can make a very, very big difference. Landing with a minor failure means damaging a chosen component. Landing with a major failure means your aircraft blows up. So having a pilot on your spaceship can save an awful lot of trouble. So I'm going to have him on retainer for future use. And then I'm going to leave my Vostok in space once more. I'm being overcautious here, but I've had trouble with mechanics, who are the ones that give you the benefit to life support. The first time I sent a mechanic up into space, he passed out and wasn't able to repair life support, and then everybody died. So Vostok stays in space, minor failure. Okay. That leaves me with 7 million I'm not going to get to do anything with. I guess I could have spent the 2 to buy one more thing. I've got a Vostok in space. I've got a Vostok in my inventory. I'm going to leave it. That's all for now. Okay, so my life support is now flawless. So as I get... 1963, I think. If for some reason I just advanced the year twice, could somebody please tell me? Because losing a year in this game is critical. Especially because I'm leaving doing a lot of things here very, very late. All right, we're going to build a rocket that's going to get us into lunar orbit at the very least. I also have a probe still in space that I could use to do a thing. And I'm going to bring down my Vostok capsule because it's 0 difficulty to re-enter Earth. You just pull it out of orbit. I think, do I need a rocket to move a capsule out of orbit? No, because calculate thrust. Difficulty 0. Weight of 2 times 0 is 0. So this thing just drops back down to Earth. I'm going to attempt re-entry. Straight out the gate. Let's have a go. Minor failure. Okay, so the capsule is damaged, but the occupants survive. I'm going to spend 5 million to get rid of that. So this is damaged. And back on Earth. That will repair for free at the end of the year. And this is why we try things out on Earth a little bit. Now, let's see what we can do. So, if I build a Soyuz rocket and I attach a probe to it, that's a weight of 10. 10 times 8 is 80, which means in a single stage, a Soyuz rocket can take a probe to Earth orbit, which is great, because it's got a thrust of 80. Once I'm there, I need to get to lunar orbit, and God help everybody involved, I'm going to try landing. So I'm going to spend $10 million right now to get the landing technology. 1, 2, 3. It's difficulty 3 to get here and 2 to get here, which means to land, I need basically a Juno and a probe. Junos, the nice thing with Junos is they're cheap. They cost $1 or $1 million. They're not expensive to move around. They just only have limited usage, and I'm wondering if I might stick to Atlases for now. So if I have an Atlas and a thing to land on the moon, but I have to get that sample back to Earth, which means I need weight 2, difficulty 2 to get back again. Difficulty 2, if I use an Atlas to get into lunar orbit, that's going to be a weight of 5. 5 times 2 is 10, so that's more than enough. If I add another one, 9 times 2 is 18. Nine times 3 is 27, which means this will get us to... I can get off the moon with this, and I can get into Earth orbit with this, which is going to be an easier rendezvous than trying to rendezvous in lunar orbit. Which means I need to land this on the moon. Difficulty 2. If I add an Atlas to that, that's 13. That will land on the moon. Lunar orbit from Earth orbit. I'm going to stop doing this by picking up rockets I haven't bought yet, because I'm confusing myself. This is all stuff I have not purchased. Earth orbit to lunar orbit is difficulty 3. If I put a Soyuz, that is going to be 13, 22. 22 times 3 is 66. A Soyuz can do it by itself. Earth orbit from suborbital space is a difficulty 5. 18 plus 13 is going to be 31. 31 times 5 is 152. Can't do it. If I add 9 to that, 13 times 5. 31 times 5, sorry. It's 155, beg your pardon. Can't do it. And it's adding an extra one. Okay, so I'm going to try and do this from Earth, which is probably really stupid. Difficulty 8. Can I do this in a single stage? I've got like 3 years worth of budget here. Maybe I should just do the flyby to start with. I can survey it. My life support's good, so I can start with a man in space at the start of the year. And I can just do the lunar flyby and back again. So, I'm going to take a few steps back. I'm going to mount a Vostok capsule on a rocket and see what happens then. So, difficulty 2. I want to be in Earth orbit at the start of the year. which means I'm going to need supplies, which is a weight of 1. And I need to bring that much back. If I have an atlas equipped, that's a difficulty of 7. 7 times 1 is... that's tons. That's fine. Which means this is 8, 9, 10, 11. I need to get 11 into Earth orbit. If I attach a Soyuz... that's 20. 20 times 5 is 100. That's not enough. If I attach 2 Soyuz, that's 29. 29 times 5 is 145. Those give out 160. If I attach another Soyuz, that's 27, 38, times 3 is going to be too much. And if I attach another Soyuz, that's 36, 40, 47 times 3 is not double 80. Which means this is what I would need using Soyuz rockets to go 2 stage into Earth orbit, back to lunar flyby, and back out to Earth orbit. That weight is a lot. I maybe should be researching. I should have researched Junos from the outset. I've got a different tack to the last one I used when I played this game, and I'm not sure it served me terribly well. Let's see. That's $32 million, which means that's more than a year's worth of stuff. 32, 42, 47. This is 2 years worth of purchasing material, and I've already got rid of a lot. I do have a Vostok that's going to be repaired. I have another one over here, so I don't need to buy that, and I don't need to buy one of the Atlases, which means I need 4 Soyuz, an Atlas, and I don't need the supplies. So 4 Soyuz and an Atlas, which is going to cost me 37 million. I'm going to spend the 10 million to buy 1 Soyuz. Actually, I don't need that. Which means I need 2 more Soyuz and an Atlas, which I can buy next round. Bearing in mind also, though, my Soyuz rockets are untested. Okay. I have 2 million left. I'm going to buy another Vostok, just in case I end up needing it. Alright, end of the year. 22 million. 25 million, sorry. I'm going to spend 16 on the Soyuz and 5. I'm going to spend 21 total right now and just get it done to buy everything I would need to create my little super rocket. I put another Atlas on that, and then a Vostok, and some supplies, and Neil. Life support's good. Re-entry is a thumping great big question mark right now. I have 4 million left over. That's not really enough to do anything useful. I could buy an Eagle, but they're useless. I could buy an Apollo capsule. That would allow me to send up 3 astronauts, which would allow me to send a medic, which could be helpful. I'm going to buy an Apollo and put it into my inventory. And we're going to leave that right there because I want to be able to get rid of some stuff. I can pretty much tell you already, I feel like I'm not going to win this. We'll see how it goes, but I've left everything a bit too late. I went a very different tack with this, and I'm not sure it served me. We'll see. The last time I said I was going to lose a game on this stream, I won it, so who's to say? This Vostok is now repaired, so it comes back into active service. I'm going to put it back into my inventory for now. What have I got to do to go up here? I've got to blast off, which I'm fine with. I've got to go lunar flyby and back to there. So everything up to... I could reveal the moon and have a man in space at the start of the year without taking any risks. Because all of that... The worst that happens with the surveying going wrong is the surveying doesn't happen, which is a pain in the ass, but it's not going to end the world. It's only on re-entry and landing that things could go wrong. It's time to start taking risks. So, from Earth, we are going to blast off into suborbital space. That is a difficulty of 3. I want to make sure I've weighted this correctly, because if I get to suborbital space, I can do everything else. 1, 2, 3. Actually, let's do it this way. Oh, I should not have a probe there. Why do I have a probe? I've got a capsule. I don't need the probe. Probe can stay down there. Nope. Oh, did I just... I picked up my probe that was in space. Whoops. So 4 nines is 36, plus 4 is 40. 44, 45, 46, 47. 47 with a difficulty of 3. 47, that's going to be 141. 2 Soyuz rockets put out 160 thrust. So I can do that safely, and I go to suborbital space. However, now that I am here with a man on board, I reveal suborbital space. Okay, this says roll a die per astronaut. On the roll of a 1, they are incapacitated. That would be bad. 3, we're fine. I'm now going to go into Earth orbit. This is difficulty 5. So I have 18, 19, 20, 29. 29 times 5 is less than 150. So if I fire my 2 Soyuz rockets again... Oh, I have to test my Soyuz. I may not be in... Ah, idiot. Okay, so for my first one... I said it was a risk. The first Soyuz... I don't technically know this information yet. The first Soyuz rocket I fired... And this is why I said it was a risk. I probably shouldn't have done that. After all that testing on my atlases. All of this stuff just blew up. Which means Neil Armstrong did not make it into suborbital space. And that's real bad. Well, oh, Jen got zapped by my Nightbot. I'm sorry, my Nightbot is really, really over emphatic with its spam blocking. Rats. Okay, well that didn't go according to plan at all. That was an enormous amount of money down the drain. Well, I have 20 million left over. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do the sensible thing I should have done last time. I'm going to buy 2 bloomin' Soyuz rockets and put them on launch pads and fire them off to see what's in this deck. That leaves me with 4 million. That's not enough to hire another astronaut. They cost 5. I'm just going to lose it. Never mind. Okay, well, this is really not going so well. 1966. I have 10 years left, and I've achieved getting a probe into orbit. $25 million. Okay, I'm going to fire a Soyuz rocket. It can... 9 times 8 is what? 72. It can get itself into Earth orbit. I'm just going to fire it up there. Soyuz rocket. What happens to Soyuz? Success. Of course, now I draw that. Okay, 10 million. That's gone. This rocket's blown up. Run out of fuel, whatever it's done. Soyuz number 2, going into Earth orbit. Success. Now, because this is a success and it's the last card, I don't pay the 10 million to get rid of it. It just goes away for free, which is nice. But of all the cards I could have drawn on that first one, like I would have felt better if I'd even got a man into Earth orbit and then it had blown up. But to have it go up before I'd even got suborbital, that is highly frustrating. Well, my Soyuz rockets are now fixed. So life support, Soyuz, and Atlas rockets no longer need testing. I can't buy 2 of them because I don't have the money, but I can buy 1. And I have 15 million, so I have 7 left over. I'm going to buy another Atlas. And that leaves me with 2. I'm just going to lose the 2. I'm going to put a Vostok and some supplies on here. No, I need a capsule. That is a capsule. Vostok and supplies go in there. Okay, 1967. 25 million bucks. I'm going to spend 24 million on 3 Soyuz rockets. What else do I need? I need an Atlas. Okay, well, 1968. Oh, I'm just going to have my... No, my probe will burn up. It can't re-enter. I'm going to buy an Atlas rocket. That's going to be 5 million. So I've got $20 million to use this year. Now I'm going to try and do this again. Except this time with 100% better rockets. Vostok supplies. I'm going to spend 5 million to hire Yuri Gagarin. No real order to how I'm just picking up the next person in the chain. Okay, so 36, 40, 47. Same deal. So I'm going to spend 2 Soyuz rockets to fire myself into suborbital space. Now I discover that problem that I had previously. If I roll a 1, Yuri is incapacitated. That's an 8. I'm going to fire 2 more Soyuz rockets to get myself into Earth orbit. I'm going to then fire... So I've got... my thing now is 4, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 times 1. This has 27. So I'm going to fire that, and I'm going to go into lunar flyby. I'm then going to survey. I draw a random outcome when surveying a location. Remembering this starts with only 1. That's a success. That goes away automatically, and I have surveyed the moon. The moon has valuable minerals, so samples of the moon are actually worth $25 million at the beginning of the year. Pretty good, and I'm probably really going to need that. If I leave this spacecraft here, it will be lost at the end of the year, so I'm going to spend my last Atlas rocket to fly it back into Earth orbit. And it is there. It is safe. Now, one thing that I haven't really explained, I haven't gone into any detail of, but you'll see that I was talking about those the hourglass symbol, meaning time passes. There are hourglass symbols in brackets for moving around between the Earth and the Moon, but that means you can choose to use them if you want. It doesn't actually take years to get there. The reason you might choose to do that is if you build ion thrusters. These are a special type of rocketry, essentially. Ion thrusters are not particularly powerful, but they will get you there without a lot of weight, and the longer you take, the further they carry you. So this has a weight of 1. Each thruster has a weight of 1. They don't blow up they don't fall off the rocket once you've used them the way that all the other rockets do. These stay attached. And every year that you add to how long it takes you to do something, they provide 5 thrust. So if I have 2 ion thrusters and I choose to take 3 years to do something, they combined provide 30 thrust by themselves. Ion thrusters are very good. They are not something I have invested in just yet. I may look at doing that if we get remotely close enough to do anything. So I have revealed the moon location. That's 4 more points for me. I am going to end the year. So Yuri and my capsule, along with some supplies, are still in space in Earth orbit. At the end of the year, Yuri has to eat. So 1 set of supplies. These feed 5 astronauts, but 1 set of supplies goes away. And life support is fully functional, so it doesn't go wrong, and he is not incapacitated, which means he is fine. The next year, $25 million. Oh, I didn't spend any money. Whoops. So before we do any of that, I have 15 million left over. I'm going to buy an Atlas for my inventory. And I'm actually going to buy the Saturn rocket No, I'm going to buy the landing technology. No, I've got landing. Landing? Yes, I've got landing. I'm going to buy the Saturn rocket technology. Starts with 3 outcomes on it. They cost 15 million. They're expensive. They have a weight of 20, but a thrust of 200. It's extraordinary. They're very powerful. They will be very helpful if I'm going to try and do anything. That cost me my 10 million. And I bought an Atlas. That's 15. Okay. 1969. $25 million. At the beginning of the year, yes, I have a man in space. Completed. That is another 6 victory points. So I've scored 12 so far, and I'm going to lose 2 for Neil being dead. I also have to try and bring a man back. So I haven't really tested re-entry or landing. No time like the present. Especially because Neil is going to make landing better. So the big deal is I'm coming back down into suborbital space. That means well, actually, no, I'm going straight down to Earth. What am I talking about? I just go straight to Earth. I have to deal with re-entry. If this is a minor failure or a success, we're okay. If this is a major failure, Yuri, it will no longer be with us because the capsule will be destroyed on re-entry. Success. I'm going to spend 10 million to get rid of that. And re-entry is successful. I am going to try landing. I have no reason not to, because a major failure with a pilot on board counts as a minor failure. Which means is rough landing damage chosen component. I could just damage the capsule, but Yuri would still be alive. So we're back down on Earth, and it will immediately be what's the word? Repaired at the end of the year. So I'm going to attempt a landing, see if I can weed out something from here. Major failure. Woof. So I'm going to spend 5 million, get rid of that. The capsule is damaged. Now, here's an interesting point. Undamaged capsule, it says at the bottom, when facing an atmosphere, draw from the re-entry deck. If that capsule becomes damaged, and you attempt to re-enter, it will burn up in the atmosphere. Now, fortunately, I've already passed through the atmosphere, so it simply lands damaged. Yuri is fine. I have sent a man to space and brought him back. That's another 2 points. So in this course of a year and a half, essentially, I have scored myself 14 points. Minus 2, so 12. Things I still have to do if I'm going to try and win this game. I need to reveal Venus, so I need to either do a flyby or orbit Venus and survey it. My surveying is fine, so we know that's okay. Oh yes, I can add that to my perfectly okay pile. We know that's going to be okay. That would take me up to... What am I at? I'm at 14. That would take me up to 20. And then I could either bring back samples from Mars and the Moon, or I can try and land a man on Venus. Now, that may not be possible. We don't know. The thing is, there's a lot involved in getting somebody up to Venus, and I'm going to have to start doing some Saturn rocket exploration. I'm going to buy a Soyuz to go into my inventory with my 10 million that I've got here. And I'm going to lose the 2. My Vostok is repaired. Nobody's up in space, so I don't need to worry about anything. Calendar moves along, and I get my 25 million. Okay, so here's the deal. If I can get the sample from the Moon and bring it back to Earth successfully, that's huge. Because if I do that, that sample will also not only get me 10 victory points, which will carry me to 30 and put me 10 points away from winning the game. 11 points away. Actually, so I could do this by bringing samples back from Mars and the Moon. I don't actually have to go to Venus at all if I choose not to. Mars is slightly harder to reach, because obviously we're working against the sun's gravity, which wants to pull us towards it, so Venus is easier. But landing a man... I guess landing a man and bringing him back isn't well, no, it is harder because I have to carry supplies and there needs to be enough food for him to survive. Whereas if I'm just sending a probe to go and get a sample, the probe doesn't actually have to carry supplies. It's an unmanned mission. So maybe I was going to try and land on Venus, but maybe at this point I swap. Because I have 10, 14. I have 12 points. I need to score 41, which means I need to get another 29. No, I still have to survey Venus. Interesting. Okay, well, I can survey Venus and get samples without ever putting another man into space. I have achieved, although I spent all that time on life support, I have actually achieved everything I need to achieve with men in space. But I do have to have a successful re-entry There's only one card left, but I need a successful re-entry in order to get a probe back. Now, here's something. If I work on Rendezvous, what I could do is I could send a spaceship up to get stuff. Bring it back. Oh, there's the other lost. I knew there was one I'd missed. If you leave a spaceship in the inner planet transfer at the end of the year, it is also lost. I could bring a spaceship back to Earth orbit such that when it gets here, only the probe is left. Because if I do that, I can send a rocket up to rendezvous with it, assemble that probe onto that rocket. Actually, no, it doesn't make a difference. Mars orbit, I guess. But I can send a rocket up to rendezvous and bring something back. So I don't have to send it with enough rocketry to get home, as long as I can get another rocket up to pick it up. So here's what I'm thinking. I think I'm going to start working on Saturn rockets. So I'm going to spend 15 million right now, and I'm going to build a Saturn. Because I haven't started on Saturns yet, this is again potentially risk-taking. There is no character who can improve the chances of a rocket, like the way that I can have a pilot turn that major failure landing into a minor failure. That's fine. I can't do that with a rocket. Nobody can fix a rocket that's going to blow up on me. If this is 3 successes, I'm laughing for the rest of this game to an extent. If it's not, I have a problem. Here's the difficulty. So, difficulty 8 to get to Earth orbit. 5 to get to Mars orbit. I can land for free. I have to take back off again for 3 and get back to Earth orbit for 5. From here, I can crash. And that's fine. I need to send a capsule, not a probe. Because if a probe tries to re-enter, it will burn up. And I have to get the samples back. The Venus flyby is going to be 832, and I only have to survey it, which means if I get to the flyby with a probe, that probe can go away, and that's fine. And the moon sample is going to be 83223. I might want to do the moon first, because the $25 million that will give me for bringing that sample back is massive. Especially given that I'm running so late. And there is a probe in space, which also means if I want to risk rendezvous, I could actually pick this probe up. So let's work this out. Probes weigh 1. Okay? I have to do 3 to get here and 2 to get here. If I have an Atlas and another Atlas, that's 9 times 3, which is 27. And then 5 times 2, which is 10. Which means 2 atlases. I need to get 2 atlases to rendezvous with this probe. And then I can get it there and forget about it. Which means I only have to get 2 atlases into space. If I fire 2 atlases with a Saturn, that's 28. Can't do it. That's 2... If I fire 2 atlases with a Saturn and a Soyuz, that's 29 plus 8 is going to be 37. 37 times 8. 30 times 8 is 3 it's 2, it's 240. 37. No, not enough. I need 2 Saturns to do that. I'm having a moment. I think those came from there. I had my Saturn. So here's the thing, right? This has a really useful little chart on it, by the way. I didn't show this before. This shows the 4 different types of rocket, and based on the difficulty of the thing you're trying to achieve, the maximum payload you can add to it and have that one rocket achieve it. So for difficulty 8, which would be going straight into Earth orbit, I can add 5 weight to a Saturn and still achieve it with just 1 Saturn. Problem is, 2 Atlases is 8 weight. So here's my next question. A Soyuz difficulty 3 can add 17.5... Okay, Saturn's too heavy. If I add a second Saturn, that's 15. 2 Soyuz would be 16. So if I add 2 Saturns, difficulty 3 with a Saturn, I can add 46.5. Difficulty 5 with a Saturn, I can still add 20. So a Saturn can carry a Saturn by itself from suborbital space into Earth orbit. That's useful to know. I'm going to spend 10 million to buy 2 more Atlases. My Atlases are basically becoming my in-space maneuvering rockets. It might be a good idea to research ion thrusters at this point, because it's going to take me time. This is the other thing, I'm really, really running out of time. I have to get going to Mars fast, because it's going to cost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have to take off for Mars next year or I lose the game. Unless I make the difficulty chronically high, and I can't afford that. Or do I just go for Venus? Venus is less time. Venus is only 1 year here and there. Okay, decision is made. I have to go to Venus. I don't have a choice. The reason for that is it's going to take me 3 years to travel to Mars orbit, and then 3 years to travel back from Mars orbit, which is 6 years. In 6 years' time, the game is over. Which means if I don't take off this year, which I can't do, I don't have the money to create a rocket to go that far, I can't get there and back. What I could do is up the difficulty to lower the time. But that would make this a difficulty 10 transition, which is loopy. I can't deal with that. So I'm going to have to land a man on Venus and hope that I can. Because if I can't, there's a 50-50 chance, I think it is with Venus, that you can't land on it. Well, risk-taking. Okay? This is interesting. So, I've also got the solar radiation to deal with too. I have absolutely no idea what that's going to do, and if I'm going to go to Venus, I've got to find out. Alright, so I have to send a rocket to the moon and a rocket to Venus. Rocket to the moon is going to be a Saturn and 2 Atlases that are going to... Yeah, I'm going to send up 2 Saturns to here, 1 Saturn to here, rendezvous with that with 2 Atlases. Hold on. I have 12 points. This adds up to 44. I only have to focus on getting into Venus. So, let's work this out. What is it going to cost me to get to Venus and back? Because I have to land on Venus and come back again. That's the key thing. If I can manage that mission, I win this game straight away. So, 3, 5, 3, 3. 0 to land. Oops, that's the wrong way around. 6 to break orbit. Damn, that's huge. 6, 3, 3. So 3, 5, 3, 3, 6, 3, 3. I need a lot more Saturns to do this. And I need them to be working, and I haven't tested a Saturn yet. Okay. If I fire off 4 Saturn rockets, that's going to be a weight of 80 and thrust of 800. 80 times 8 That's done. 80 times 3. 8 threes is 240. 89 times... I don't have my... my phone's up there. Because my phone is my camera. I need to start doing... Sorry, in order to speed things up a little bit, I am going to start using a calculator on the computer just to do sums a little bit more rapidly for myself. So 89 times a difficulty of 8 would be 712. That's daft. 89 times a difficulty of 3 is 267. So I could take 3 Saturns into suborbital space by firing a Saturn and a Soyuz. 60 times 5 is 300, which means I'd need 2 Saturns to get to here. I think I've screwed this up. I don't think I can make this work because I need to buy too many Saturns with too little time left over. Let's see how this works. This is one giant mission. If I can do this mission plan and get it right, I can win the game with 1 rocket launch. Because I will not only land a man on Venus, I will also reveal Venus as a part of that, which would get me an additional 38 points. And I only need... I didn't calculate that right. I should have focused on just that. Plus... Like, getting that plus the probe, plus putting a man in space and dropping him back down to Earth again, would have completely won the game for me. I did not need to go to the moon at all. I was focused on trying not to do Venus, and I should have focused entirely on Venus. Okay, never mind. Well, let's see what happens. It's the end of the year, so 1971, $25 million. Jen says, how would this game work playing with other players? Everyone is competing to win the space race. I believe so. I've honestly not looked at the multiplayer rules. I've only looked at the solo rules. I know you can do things like sharing technology with people. I'm not quite sure what the benefits are to that and how that works. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't truly know the answer. Okay. Just doing some plotting as to what I can do here. I need to buy a bunch of Saturns. I could also buy a ton of ion thrusters. Do I just invest in ion thrusters? Because they weigh nothing. What do I have to do to get to... Okay, so it's a year to get here. So every ion thruster is going to give me 5. I think I should have invested in ion thrusters. Sorry, there's a lot of thinking going on in this. My apologies. That's just kind of the nature of this game. If I can work this out correctly, then I can make this happen. Here we go. What's this? Payload mass, ion thrusters. So for difficulty 3... Yeah, okay. Alright, I think I've got to do this with Saturns. I've got to risk re-entry, I've got to risk landing. So I'm going to spend 15 million on a Saturn. Goes in my inventory. I'm going to bring this over here. It doesn't really matter which rocket it's attached to. Just so that I have it close to hand. I need to send a capsule. Atlas plus Vostok. 6. No, that doesn't work. So if I'm sending just a Vostok, I need a Soyuz rocket to take off from Venus. I'm basically doing some planning at this point to see if I can send a rocket up, separate it, so that I'm carrying less, because the Venus into orbit is a difficulty of 6, which is the highest difficulty. Like, I have to get away from Earth. I don't have a choice. Coming back again, that's where I might be able to save some effort. Okay. I also have barely tested landing, which is scary. I have 10 million. With that 10 million... Oh, samples also are weight. That's the other thing I have to bear in mind. Actually, it doesn't matter if I'm not doing either. I'm gonna shift these around, because I don't care about samples right now. I care about getting a man to Venus and bringing him back again. I, therefore, need a man. I have Yuri Gagarin. Rendezvousing is pretty secure with him. Rendezvousing is docking, i.e. taking 2 spaceship parts and putting them together, so I could send anything up and rendezvous with this, and that would be a rendezvous. Or separating, where you break one spaceship into multiple parts. If I can land a Soyuz and the capsule on Venus, that's enough to get the Soyuz back into orbit again. So if my rendezvousing is working okay, if I send the Apollo capsule, that can take 3 people. I'm going to spend 10 million, and I'm going to get a mechanic and so I'm bringing Buzz Aldrin on board and Valery Bykovsky, who's a medic. So I'm going to have all 3 pilot types, all 3 astronaut types on board. That means I can spend a supply, if I have one going spare, I can spend a supply to repair something. Which means if I screw up a rendezvous, which would damage a component of the ship, I can have my mechanic repair it. It's expensive, but I think I need to mitigate some of the damage that could be done. Okay, that's the end of that year, 1972. To clarify, I need to take off next year to achieve... Oh, I don't think I can do this. Damn it. Okay, well, let's just do what we can. There's another Saturn. For the 10 million I have left, I'm going to buy 5 supplies and an Atlas. 1973. I'm pretty sure I have to take off this year. Because it's going to cost me a year to go here, a year to go here and land and come back up, a year to come here, and a year to come here. Do I have a Soyuz? I don't. I can buy a Saturn and a Soyuz for my 25 million. Alright, let's have a look at what I have in my inventory. People, remember, don't weigh anything. Or at least they don't weigh enough to outweigh the thrust a rocket provides. I have 4 Saturns, 1 Soyuz, and 4 Atlases. Well, I can already tell you that's not enough. I would be sending the Vostok, the Apollo, I think. So, even if I blasted this lot off, that's 80 plus 16 plus 12. So that's 28. 80 plus 28 is 108. 108. To get that into suborbital would be 324 thrust required. So 2 Saturns would do that. Can I do that with less? 324. No. Okay. So 2 Saturns would get us there. I've then got 68. Oh, there's no supplies in here. That's fine. So 68. That's going to be 73. I need 365 to get into Earth orbit. 2 Saturns. 8, 16 is 24. Plus 9 is 33. I need 99 to get to the inner planet transfer. 8 and 12 is 20. I then need 60 to get into Venus orbit. Actually, no, I don't. I need 57 to get into Venus orbit because I would have consumed 1 supply on the way. Oh, I only need 4 supplies. I don't think that's going to make anywhere near enough difference. Oh, the 5th one's the emergency. I've then used all my rockets just to get to Venus orbit. Then I have to land, take off again, which requires a Soyuz rocket, which I've already used. And then I still have 2 more difficulty 3 challenges before I can get back. Okay. Yeah, I don't think this can be done. I think I would have to take off right now, and I don't have enough stuff to do it. That's disappointing. If I did 26, 32. 32 plus 12. Yeah, 44. I could do these 3. The problem is I would use everything that I have here. I guess if I'm not sending supplies, I could send a Vostok. Or I could send a probe. Actually, I could send a probe to Venus to survey it. But then I've got to get stuff to Moon and Mars, which is not going to happen. Yeah, unfortunately, I have screwed the pooch. Let's just see what we can. Let's see if we can land a man on Venus. He's not going to come back. I'm not going to get the victory points for bringing him back, which would win me the game. Let's see if it's even possible to do it in the time that I have left. I took too long preparing. You have to take a few more risks, I think, in this game than I have done. I'm going to see if I can... No, I can't bring him back. What am I even talking about? Because if I add 9 weight... And that only gets him back into orbit. Oh, this guy's also here. Well, let's see what happens. Alright? So, I'm going to blast off right now with this huge pile of stuff. And I'm going to send those 3. This is a one-way mission, guys. I'm sorry. Yes, Jen says, whoever ends up getting left on Venus, we will honor their sacrifice. We will indeed. This will... With enough time, like if I had a couple more years on this game, I could afford to buy enough stuff to do it. Even if I wait 1 more year, what difference will that make? Okay. This isn't going to win me the game. I'm going to go over time. I'm going to lose the game, but I'm going to see if I can actually make this mission work if I take 1 more year. So right now, 20, 40, 60, 80, 89, 93, 97, 101, 105, 110, 113. If I added another Saturn, that would be 123. Times 8 is 900 and... Oh, no. 123 times 3 is 369. So 2 Saturns could still get that into orbit. That takes me down to 83 times 5. 2 Saturns and an Atlas would get us into Earth orbit. That would leave me with 29. That would be 83 minus 44. 39. 39 times 3 is 117. I still have a Saturn attached to the rocket at that point. 117 is enough that I could make that happen. So 117 would get me to the inner planets transfer. Then I would have 19 times 3 is 57, which I could fire 3 Atlases to get into... Okay, so if I added one more Saturn to my rocket, I could blast off from Venus and leave my guys in orbit. I would not actually be able to get anywhere back from there. I would have used every single rocket in the process. Just checking one quick thing. Okay, let's do it. One more year goes by, I spend 15 million to buy another Saturn. I'm gonna do the best I can within the realms of when this game is going to end. That is not to say it is going to work in my favor to do it this way, but I am at least going to get our people as close to coming back as possible. And if we successfully land them on Venus and blast them back off into orbit again, we know they are capable of being picked up. And that's where I'm going to leave it, because that's as far as I can get with what I've got. If I add one more Soyuz... I have to redo my math one more time. I had 123. If I add one Soyuz, that's 123 takes it to 132 times 3 is still within that border. Minus, so 132, that goes down to 92, times 5 is 460. There's our difficulty. If I take 9 off that, that goes to 81 times 5. 405. Yeah. Okay, so if I added one Soyuz, which I could afford right now, the problem with that would be I would be able to get to suborbital space, but I would just use that Soyuz up. I guess it would leave me with an Atlas. An Atlas and an Apollo is 7. 7 times 3 is 21. No, you know what? I'm going to try that. One more Soyuz. I have 2 million left over. Whatever. This bonkers rocket is going to take off. I have 2 million left for what nonsensical reason it doesn't matter. Let's go. Suborbital space. I'm gonna count this all out and make sure I've done it right. There's 100. There's 118. There's 130. 134. Oh, I didn't count this out right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 109 and 18. 122, 126, 130, 130, 142. Okay, that may have just made 0 difference whatsoever. It's 142, not 132. So I may just need to use that Soyuz to get the Soyuz off the grounds, in which case it's useless. So let's have a look. 142 times 3 is 426. So, if I use 2 Saturns and an Atlas, this rocket gets into suborbital space. Now, the problem is I haven't tested my Saturns. And I have no money. Well, I'm doing all this planning. This could just go horrifically wrong at this point. And minor failure. Remove after effects. That means the first Saturn does me no good. No thrust is provided by it. So already this mission isn't going terribly well. I can't remove that. Second Saturn. Yeah. Success. Okay. So my second Saturn at least gets me somewhere. Third Saturn. Let's do this one. Minor failure. Well, this mission was doomed from the start. So we try another Saturn. Minor failure. Oh, this is... Yeah, not being able to buy these things away. This is why you buy these things away. In fact, you know what? Hang on. I'm being really, really dumb. Given that this is now a thrown... Like, I've lost this game. I can't get any more points than I already have. I'm going to go into the beginning of next year and take the stupid $25 million because this is what I should have done. Now we launch the Saturns, and I can actually buy some of this stuff away. So, let's try that again. Minor failure. So that Saturn fails, but I at least buy that off. And that rocket is damaged. Second Saturn. Success. There's 10 million. Bought that off. That goes off. Third Saturn. Major failure. Blows up the entire bloomin' rocket. Well... I may as well buy... Oh, I only spent 5 million to buy off the... Yeah, I did that. There's another 5 million gone. So let's just have a look at that for a second, shall we? That is 5, 10, 15, 20, 25... 8 and 4 is 20. That's 45. 60, 75, 90. That's $120 million worth of rocket just blew up. And not to mention the deaths of Yuri Gagarin, Buzz Aldrin, and Valery Bykovsky. Whoops. With that, there's really nothing useful I can achieve at this point. That was... Yeah. I went about this wrong. I can't do any of the things. I went about this really, really wrong. I should have focused on Venus from the outset. Probably bought into Saturn rockets immediately and tested them to death. And I would have been able to just probably stash them until I could send a rocket comprised of nothing but Saturn rockets to Venus. And it's great because they provide 10 times the thrust of the weight that they actually carry, which makes them very, very powerful for moving distances with heavy stuff. Unfortunately, as it stands, there's very, very little I can do. Just going to put all this stuff back. In terms of what needs to be achieved to get me any additional victory points in this game, the minimum I would need to do would be to get a rocket to the Venus flyby. I could probably do that now because my Saturns are safe, but I left it way too late to decide to actually make that adjustment. And yeah, such is life. My space program goes down in an ignominious hail of bad press and embarrassment and mortification and feeling the guilt of several astronauts' deaths on my conscience for the rest of my life. I did say at the beginning of this I'm not very good at this game. I'm sorry that this ended quite as poorly. I was rather hoping I would do a little better than that. I think one thing that threw me off from the outset, I had this nice little collection of objectives, the ones that I actually achieved, that fundamentally existed of get dude into space, bring back dude back from space. That's kind of okay. But then having Venus and Mars and landing on the moon all as options to get myself points, unfortunately, I kind of spread myself too thin. especially because I didn't focus on Venus from the outset. If I'd gone purely for Venus, I probably could have done that. I miscalculated from the very beginning by trying to do other things. When you say to yourself, I need to score 41 points to win this game, and 32 points can be scored just by landing somebody on Venus, probably try and land somebody on Venus. I could play out the rest of this game, but honestly it would just be decision making of how to build a rocket that's not going to get me anywhere, because I can't actually get to the moon with the money that I'm getting right now, and land there and come back. So no points are going to be added, so I'm just going to call the game at this point. Out of curiosity, however, let's look at what could have... So I could have got minerals from the moon. That is 10 points. I could also reveal the Venus location, so that's 16 points. So already I couldn't have won without doing one of these. However, could I have got a sample from Mars? Yes. And actually there are supplies on Mars as well, because there's plant life you can eat, so I could have resupplied myself there. Doesn't matter particularly. Could I have landed on Venus? Yes. Okay, that's... And this is where I lost this game the moment I didn't focus on it. The biggest problem you can have is where flying to Venus is the only Venus objective in the entire game, and you turn Venus over, and it's this guy. Because you can't land on that. So if you've spent all of your effort getting to Venus, only to find out you actually can't land on it, that's extremely frustrating. And that's partly why I didn't focus on it from the beginning. That said, in this game I should have done, because I could have landed there. That is the challenge of this game, though. We chose to shoot for more than just the moon, and that was probably our downfall. Out of interest, also, the solar radiation here. Interesting. So radiation level 1, roll a die per astronaut. So in this case, I would roll a die for every astronaut that was on a ship that was traveling. So for example, to go to, if I'd chosen to go to Mars orbit from the Earth orbit, that's 3 hourglasses. If the result of my die was 3 or lower, they would have fallen sick with radiation poisoning. The other sun solar radiation options that are in there are no significant radiation, and if the result is double your time or less, then your astronauts fall sick. And that one's really bad, because that means you can't go from Earth orbit to Mars orbit directly without guaranteeing your astronauts are going to fall sick, or doing it with ion thrusters, or, well, thrusters in general, and doubling the time to get there quicker. I've never actually had someone fall... The last time I played where I actually started moving around orbits, I had 0 radiation, so it wasn't an issue. If, however, you do get radiation and you fall sick, what actually happens? I realise I don't know the answer to this question. Radiation, 24-25. Maneuver hazards, radiation, blah, 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 blah. Oh, they just become incapacitated. Which means you need a medic. So if your medic gets sick, he becomes incapacitated, he can't heal anybody. Which means if you have that level 2 radiation, you'd better not go to Mars very often. That becomes highly, highly risky. Just for the sake of curiosity, Phobos was just Phobos. Nothing about it particularly interesting. Ceres, if we had landed on Ceres, a Ceres sample would have been worth $50 million at the beginning of the year. And the moon we turned over. So that's everything we had available for us in this game. You'll notice this is the inner planets transfer, and there's a note here for outer. You can go to the outer planets transfer. That is an expansion, I believe. There's also the expansion for Mercury, which does come with this game. I could have played with Mercury in here. I think I have it here. Oh no, I kept those cards packed away, so I didn't use them by accident. You can, and there's space stations and things like that. Like, there's quite a lot you can add to this. This is hard. That's the biggest thing I can come away with. This game is not easy in any stretch of the imagination. I obviously proved that by losing horrifically. My mind... I haven't played this enough to start doing the far ahead math that you need to do to really deal something like this. Like, if I'd been dealt a different batch of missions, put a man in Earth orbit and back. Well, I did that. Reveal Mars is easier. Working probe or capsule in space. Now, it's only a point, but you get that by getting it into suborbital space, I believe. You don't even have to, like what I did, which was I put it into... I can't pick the card up now. I put it into Earth orbit. You don't even have to do that. You just have to get it into space. Probe capsule on Ceres, probe capsule on Mars, reveal Mercury. Well, it's a Mercury one. Man on the moon and back, I probably could have gone for. Working probe or capsule on the moon. If you get both of those, you just have to land a capsule with a dude in it, and you get 18 points. Phobos sample, working capsule on Venus. Man on the moon at the start of the year. If you get that one, that's a hard. These two are medium. If you get Man on the Moon and back, working probe capsule on the moon, and Man on the moon at the start of the year, all in your objective draw, you've got a substantially simpler game than the one that I just played. And extraterrestrial life. Sometimes the moon has extraterrestrial life, and you can get all 4 of those objectives with one rocket. Land it on the moon, have enough supplies for the guy to eat there for a year, bring him back. Job done. You get a draw like this. Very, very different problem. I'm interested in the idea... Also, if you play the easier game, right? This is the hard game. They recommend you play hard or very hard for solo play. That probably also assumes you have played multiplayer several times, which I have not, and therefore are more familiar with the game than I am. I'm experimenting this fully through solo play. What I think I'm going to do is the next game I play, and I haven't done this yet, but the next game I play I'm going to drop down to medium difficulty, which is 4 easy objectives and 2 medium ones. I think that's going to be substantially easier to complete, and it might just give me a bit more of that mindset of how to play the game better. I'm kind of having the same thought process with Gloomhaven, which I own, but have never really played much of. I've started the campaign twice and lost the first mission both times. And it's because, I think, for solo play, because you don't have the hidden information, the game says, play the game 1 level more difficult. And if you don't know the game very well, I don't think that's a very easy thing to do. So I'm going to play my first few missions at the regular difficulty and then up it when I know what I'm doing. I think that's the same premise with this. I'm going to bring myself up as I chat. It's a much, much more complex game than it looks. It's very easy to learn. Like, I mean, it took me half an hour to teach it at the beginning of this video, but it's not a particularly complicated game to learn once you understand the terminology, once you understand the process of a turn, and once you understand the icons. That's all fairly simple. Knowing how to play it well, very, very different kettle of fish. In this case, as I said earlier, I screwed up by not focusing on Venus from the outset. If I had done that, I would have probably jumped in on Soyuz and Saturn rockets and not wasted time with the Atlases. And I think that's probably the point that Troubled Tribble was making at the beginning of the game, when they said Atlas rockets won't get us to Venus. And in my brain, I was sort of thinking, no, that's true, but there's other stuff to achieve. If I had just gone for Venus, that probably would have isolated a lot of the problems I ran into. I would have not wasted as much time curing the Atlas rockets of their glitches. Even though I achieved a very successful mission in getting out to Earth and back and achieving 3 objectives in 1 rocket's worth, which was a very good feeling, and it felt nice to be able to have done that. Ultimately, the effort put into that wasted a lot of time. I'm looking at what I've got here. I could have even risked not researching surveying. I could have just tried to land on Venus with a manned capsule and hoped for the best. It's a valid option. You just don't know what's going to happen. I could have blown up, as I showed you. The cards for Venus. There's a 50, so there's 4 cards for Venus. One says oceans of liquid water, supplies available. So I could have. That would have been me. I wouldn't have needed to take all those supplies. I could have picked supplies up from Venus. One says extensive wetland life, supplies available. This one is not only supplies, it's also alien life. So that completes the extraterrestrial life. The other one, I'm sorry, there were 3, not 4. The other one is your spacecraft is destroyed by extreme heat and pressure. So there's a 1 in 3 chance, if you land blind on Venus, that you just lose your rocket and everybody associated with it, which is why surveying is good. But you can save yourself $10 million by never researching the surveying tech. I did that because I had multiple surveys. I was surveying the moon and Venus. And I wasn't going to try to land on the moon because I was ultimately, but I wasn't thinking about it that early on. This kind of thought oh, sorry, I totally ignored a thing here. Jen says it's kind of like playing a game of chess, thinking 3, 4, 5 moves ahead and hoping for the best. Absolutely. Now that I'm done playing, I'm just going to turn my ring light up a little so that I look a little less in shadow. Absolutely that's what it is. It's a game where you have to plan, you have to know what you're doing from the outset, and you have your opening move. My opening move was to start studying Atlas rockets, and that opening move, I spent too long practicing an opening move that didn't get me anywhere, and that's the nature of this game. With more understanding, I will be able to play this substantially better, and I would be interested in bringing this back onto the stream again once I have a better idea of what I'm doing. This was my 3rd playthrough of this game. I was more successful in the other 2, although I haven't won it yet. One time, I think I had a goal of 92 points or something like that, so I had to score 47, and I scored 46, which was very frustrating. But that's the game, and I was really pleased with that because I did really well. I was so close to winning, and I was 1 year behind where I should be. The first game was awful. I was wrecked. This one, my mindset, if I hadn't made that mistake at the beginning, that put to one side for a moment, I was actually quite pleased with how my mindset was going, in the sense of I think I ultimately would have achieved my goals, but I needed 30 years to do it, not 20. And that's interesting. This is a really fascinating study, and it's a game I really want to dig more into. Maybe I should have not streamed this until I was more familiar with it, but I think sometimes it's interesting to see failures and to see how what the logic of a game is going wrong. I don't want to come onto this channel and win every single time. I think there's some interest value in seeing somebody who doesn't always succeed. If I'm wrong, please correct me. But that's that. And that's going to be it. Those are my thoughts on this. This is a game that has given me so much cause for thought. I've spent a lot of time analysing the previous games, and now I'm doing it with this one, and I'll do so more once I'm off stream. But this is such an interesting game, and I feel like there's probably quite a lot of science behind it. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. I'm not a rocket scientist, funnily enough. But it is an interesting piece of logic, and that I find very cool to play with. So there we have it. Thank you very much to those of you who have joined me for this. I really appreciate it. If you haven't been here before, as I said earlier, I focus on solitaire gaming. That's my thing. So Once Upon a Die began as a podcast, and there are multiple episodes of that podcast available, and I would encourage you, if you are interested in solitaire gaming, to go and give it a listen. I do the conceit with my podcast is when I talk about a game that is not very thematic, I will just talk about it for a bit and give my thoughts and say what it does. But when it's a very thematic game, I also write a radio play based on a single playthrough of the game. I pick out the most interesting moments and write scenes from a radio play, and I have them fully voice acted. That's something I really enjoy doing. The podcast, due to personal and business circumstances, went on to hiatus for it was almost 2 years, and it was just about to come back, and hey presto, we were told we're not allowed to gather anymore. I could do this. I'm working on setting up doing this remotely so that I can arrange voice actors sending me stuff so I can maybe get it back up and running. But for the meantime, I'm doing this instead. I just switched over to Twitch, and now I get to play games and hopefully provide some entertainment to you guys. So please do follow me here if you don't. I'm going to tell Nightbot to give you my little summary. This is me. There we go. teaching and playing through board games for one player with a particular engagement with the story within a game. Not something that this game has given me quite as much ability to focus on. If I'd spent time thinking about story with this, I would have lost a lot sooner. But that is what I do. I would like to also take a minute... Oops, dropping my rulebook. I would like to take a minute to shout out a couple of other channels. And if those of you who are in chat will be able to see this, my apologies for those of you in... I think I've got my commands right. No. So, Moyle's Meticulous Minis. Moyle's Meticulous Minis is a channel I recommend you go and have a look at if you are interested in the world of miniature painting. Scott literally spends 5 hours. He does 4 5-hour streams a week, I think it is. And he streams himself painting really, really cool miniatures exceptionally well. He is really, really good at this. And I've really enjoyed. He's got some great banter. He just chats away while he's doing it. And he did a 3D print of Audrey 2 from the Little Shop of Horrors recently. He's painting up Starcadia Quest, which is a Come On game that has a lot of references to popular culture. He was for Mother's Day he painted that game's version of the Alien Queen and Ripley from the Alien series. And he just does a brilliant job. So I recommend you check him out and go and follow him if that is something that would interest you. And also, if I can get my command right here again. There we go. Into the Meepleverse. Is that right? No, that's not my command. My command is Meepleverse. Is that it? There we go. Into the Meepleverse. That is Billy and Maggie run Into the Meepleverse. I think for the Twitch purposes, it's mostly Billy, just due to the isolation circumstances, but they are another board game podcast and stream. Check out their podcast as well, and they've just recently, I believe, finished streaming a campaign of Star Wars Imperial Assault. I'm not quite sure what's up next, but they are on Twitch every Monday at 7 p.m, and they do some really cool stuff. Billy's been streaming, I think, with his housemate. And I'm not sure what's coming up next. I haven't had a chance to ask him. I guess he's probably not still around because he said he wasn't going to be able to hang around for this. So I don't know if he's popped back. Billy, if you're here, do say so. Otherwise, yeah, check them out. Into the Meepleverse. Very, very good content. I really, really enjoy their work. And hopefully you guys will too. For me, you've seen my information scrolling across the bottom of the screen for a while. Podcast is Once Upon a Die. Obviously, you're here. If you're watching this on YouTube after the fact, please head over to twitch.tv/Once Upon a Die, and I would love it if you would give me a follow over there. If you're watching this on Twitch right now, please go over to my YouTube channel. If you just look up either Once Upon a Die or D.A. Xavier, you will find my YouTube channel there, and all of my streams go onto YouTube once I have finished with them. I download them off Twitch and upload them there. So that will be there. You can see my social media. Instagram is Once Upon a Die Podcast. Twitch is Upon a Die Podcast. And if you are interested in what I do and you enjoy what I'm doing, please do head over to Patreon, patreon.com/Once Upon a Die. And I'd love it if you'd become a member of my community over there as well. I'm just starting to kind of ramp up with ideas of ways of engaging the community while it builds, and I would love to have a few more people come and join me. In the meantime, though, this has been Once Upon a Die. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope to see you for my next stream, which I think is going to be on Thursday afternoon. That would be May the 14th. I'm not 100% certain, or Thursday evening, I should say. I will confirm that on my social media as soon as I know for sure. And that will be something a little more story-oriented and a little shorter than this. And I hope to see you there. So for now, thank you again for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it. Stay safe wherever you are. Enjoy gaming. Feel free to come along and ask me questions on social media and what have you, if there's anything I've been doing here that's interested you and you'd like to know more. And keep rolling those dice until the game is done. Have a good night.